second time we've got to meet, so I just wanted to say again, from the last time, it was such a pleasure. This time, I'm so happy to have you back, and I just want to give you expressed appreciation for being here, because I know you could be anywhere else in the world, and you're here with us. Thank you, brother, for coming to share your wisdom and your insights and the inner view that you have. Anything you want to say for yourself? Yeah, go.
Oh, no, man. It's a pleasure. It's exciting to be back here. Again, as you know, I'm just enjoy being able to find ways to give back and find a way in life for me to consume all the greatness that is around me, and to be able to give back and create to others, and just continue to learn and change this world for the better, man. So it's exciting to be here. I'm thankful and looking forward to more of this for sure.
All right. Heck yeah, man. So let's kick it off with what is transformation, right? And we'll just start with how it is you have it, and we'll go from there. What is transformation, Bill?
Yeah, I think transformation, is one of those terms that could be very defined differently across the board with so many people. And specifically when we talk about the self-help industry, it's a topic I've been talking a lot about over the past year, right? And you and I have had a chance to talk about transformation, what that means in the self-help industry, because I'm really passionate and very verbal about that. The self-help industry, when it started, was about that. It was about transformation, right? And there's parts to transformation, which is that motivational, inspirational piece. But that's not what the self-help industry is about. It's about the transformation and the motivation, inspiration. Again, it's just pieces and parts of the overall big picture of, again, transformation. We're going to be saying these words a lot through this conversation, right? Transformation. But, when people are looking to do something different in their life, and they're looking up to, big speakers to get on stage and motivate and inspire, they seem to think that that's what's going to help them transform to that next level of whatever it is that they want to do in life, whether it's their personal life, whether it's business, whether it's sports, it doesn't matter. The difficult part that people really have to realize is, we'll utilize me, for example, talking about the Olympics and bobsled. I didn't go to one bobsled tryout camp and learn as much as I could in a few hours, or over 2 days, or over 3 days, or maybe even a week, and then all of a sudden find myself at the Olympic Games. There's no transformation. Now, within all that stuff, yeah, I was motivated, I was inspired, I was excited to put some things in action, but there's a lot of stuff that still needed to be learned over time with practices, daily practices, that actually were going to eventually help me make that transformation from a track and field athlete over here to a bobsled athlete, which is two very, very different sports, right? And, you talk about the extremes of transformation. I'm fortunate enough to be able to talk about that story of, training for Summer Olympics in track and field, and then transforming into a Winter Olympics in bobsled. So, again, getting back to that transformation is taking, inspiration by definition. So a lot of people might have a lot of different definition, taking that inspiration, the motivation, education, and then putting actions into it on a daily basis, making it a practice. And it's no different than, again, we'll utilize me or somebody else in any sport or field that they're successful in. They practice that on a daily basis to become good at what they do, or help that transformation. A teacher, a doctor, a lawyer, when they're going to school, they're working on those skills, getting inspired, motivated, but learning those skills and tools that they have to eventually put in action to make that transformation, to be a doctor, to be a lawyer, to be a teacher. And I think, again, I'm going to be outspoken about that. That's what the self-help industry has gotten so far away from nowadays, is that transformational piece. And again, I'm not going to, throw anybody under the bus. There's a lot of people out there that are phenomenal at the motivational, inspirational thing, but what the people are truly missing out on is that transformational piece, and that takes time for them to actually achieve those things to become transformational. And again, it goes back to continued learning. It might be continued inspiration, motivation. It comes with, I will throw it out there, it comes with having a coach in your life helping you out along the way. I was never, ever, ever, ever going to make 3 Olympics, let alone an Olympic silver medal for the U.S. team without a coach. Actually, in my case, several coaches and mentors by my side to help me achieve that type of greatness. And so when I have a client come to me, and you probably see this all the time, right? They'll work with you for a little bit and they're like, oh, I got it. And off they go. And and I'm looking at them the same way. You're like, no, you don't got it yet. You might have a good understanding of what we're talking about, some of the concepts. You might be inspired. You might be motivated. You've also probably gotten to a place where you're a little bit more comfortable, which is cool, but you don't got it yet. And so I'm just really big on, if we're going to help people make changes in their life, help them transform, they've got to understand like what really comes along with that. And it's more than just being, at an event where you're getting inspired, motivated, or reading a book and thinking you can go home and take those things and apply them to your life directly on a regular day-to-day basis. So transformation, there's a lot more to that than just that, as we're talking about right now. And, I'm just here to see what I can do to help my clients actually transform.
Yeah. Well, so what I love what you're bringing around this conversation around transformation is I hear you saying transformation is the daily, moment by moment. It is that practice, that grind that isn't comfortable. It isn't fun. It isn't inspirational. It's often you have to be motivated just to like do this practice again. Right.
Yeah.
And that part is what's transforming. And anything you want to say that came up inside of what I just said there?
Yeah, no, you're good. Go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I thought I saw you going, yeah. And then, but it's all right. So there's that like the uncomfortable part where you have to practice it. And then I heard you allude to, that's the biggest reason you need somebody else on the outside, a coach or a mentor who can watch you, because everybody goes off, they think they got it. Conceptually, maybe they got it, right? But nuance-wise, they don't have all the nuances. They don't have a full color picture. They got a frame or maybe an outline. This is what it looks like. This is how it's going to go. And now they're going out to color it and make this painting, if you will, in this metaphor. But they're missing so much that could be elevated with a coach, right? And what are some of those pitfalls that happen when you think you got it? Like, what do you see?
Some of the things I've seen is like when people think they've got it. Well, first and foremost, mentioned again, they don't got it. Second off, they're missing the rest of the pieces of a puzzle to actually implement some of the things that we started off doing, right? So when we start off, we come up with a game plan and an idea, figuring out what is it they want to do from a foundational standpoint. What are they trying to accomplish? And yeah, they may have gotten it to a degree till we've gotten the ball rolling, but there's so many more things that need to keep in place to keep that ball rolling. So what happens, from my experience, is they get the ball rolling, they say that they've got it, and I've done this, and I've seen other people do this with some of their clients, and they're like, all right, if you got it, like, I don't think you have, but I'm going to let you go out, be a big boy, a big girl, whatever it is, and go on your own with what you got. And then you let them go do it. And then they always eventually come back because they hit a wall and they don't know how to take on that next hurdle or whatever it may be. And then they start going backwards. And then when they're coming backwards and they come back, you're like, oh, hey, this is what happened. It's like, well, I thought you had it. Okay, you're right. I didn't have it. And it's no different. Like, when's the last time you rode a bike? Like a pedal bike.
Yeah, I think it was within the last 6 months, let's say.
Oh, maybe. So you're probably a lot sooner than maybe a lot of people, though. But I always say, like, it's just like riding a bike, right?
Yeah.
But if I went out and rode a bike right now, it would be just a hot mess. And it's because I hadn't practiced it for a long time. So I'd have to kind of go back to some of those basics. First find a bike that actually fits my frame nowadays.
Yeah.
And just a whole lot of things, and maybe have somebody coach me, like, if I was going to go on a downhill race, if I just went right now on a downhill race on, just grab whatever random bike, whatever random tool, and in my head, I'm like, oh, I got this because I used to do this back in the day when I was a teenager. It would be complete disaster. So then I'd have to go back to the drawing table. I'd have to find a coach, like, what kind of bike do I need? Is this the proper mountain for me to be rolling down like 45 miles per hour, so on and so on. So in basics, again, just going back to that, you just see people, they end up, they might make some progress, but then they hit a wall and they kind of get off track or off their true alignment. if we will, and then they end up coming back. And so, there's a little bit of time that's wasted there. But at the same time, it might be a learning lesson they need to go through. But at the same time, it's some time that we can save by just staying on true alignment and sticking with the program and working towards that transformation.
So this brings up, there are some people, and I constantly hear the argument, like, just tough love, get it. Like, some people got it and some people don't, right? And I think I'm going to open this up around mindset, right? Like, so what does it take to continually go through that grind in the right mindset? And maybe you can speak to what is the right mindset. Go ahead. What do you see around that?
That also comes with getting a good understanding in that relationship with your individual clients. Understanding what is it they need, what is it they're trying to accomplish. And you're always kind of having to really kind of cater that game plan to their specific needs. I'm not a huge fan of saying, hey, I've got this Bill Schuffenhaur program and it fits everyone. That for me just doesn't work. Now, are there some people that you could give that to that just have that mindset that they can just like take on anything and they'll figure it out and they'll accomplish it? Yeah, absolutely. But for the rest of us that are not like that, you need a little bit more sometimes coddling. You need a more detailed, more VIP experience in some cases that helps them get along. So, as you know too, we deal and work with a lot of different individuals as well as organizations that have different levels of mindset. And so for us to like say, hey, like, here's this one thing, I'm just gonna give this to you in a box all wrapped up nice and pretty, and I'm gonna give it to the rest of the other 200 people I work with. It's the same thing, now go figure it out. That's just not gonna work. Now, some of them will get somewhere with that, but in reality, they're not gonna ever accomplish that full transformation. Again, because of that mindset. Some of them just don't have that type of mindset to just go out and conquer everything. And, so you just got to work with them and try and help them out depending on their needs.
So, I mean, that's so good because, yes, there are some people who will take it on and they're just so motivated or so driven to figure it out, right? And a lot of us get stopped before we even get started, but even once we get started, like, we always hit that wall. I guess, what do you think is the common thread between why some fail and just get up and keep going and some get stopped? Like, where do you think that happens for the human being? Not like it's a type of human being, but like every human being hits this wall that they can't overcome. Like, what do you see about that? What's the common thread around that?
Yeah, again, there's just different levels of people and their personalities and what they're willing to deal with. For me, like, I'm that guy that, like, I will just, like, I can run 100 miles per hour and hit a wall dead on and, like, get up and, like, shake my head and may have knocked me out. And I'll be like, whoa, that, like, rocked me. But I'll get up and keep going again. And then some people are like, boom, they hit that wall and they're like, oh my gosh, that was too much, right? And so it just really depends. And again, I think that's where a coach comes in handy, is helping people understand, like, when you hit a hurdle in life or in your business or your relationship, like, here's a way to potentially handle that situation. And it's just part of how some people grew up, right? I grew up in a pretty crazy situation. So I was just out on my own and I had to figure a lot of things out on my own. And I think that's where a lot of my strength comes from. And in some cases, maybe it could be a bad thing that I just, like, bullheaded, and I kind of bullhead through a lot of things in my life to accomplish them. But I've learned to be a little bit more strategic nowadays, which has been also good.
Yeah.
But, I've got clients that, similar to me, like, somebody, some of my mentors will be like, hey, you should try this. And I'll be like, okay. And I'll just grab onto it and I'll go with it 100 miles per hour. And I typically don't have much of a problem with it. But where some people need a little bit more, like, hey, this is, here's the steps, let's walk through them. It's kind of those different learning curves. Like, I learn from watching you or listening to you, where some people can take a book and they learn that way. And so just really understanding your client and their needs and figuring out how do you help them take that next step that's specific to them, and understanding their weaknesses and their strengths and what in life.
What came up for me here, Bill, is that I see that, and I want to know, because you were the person who could go 100 miles an hour and hit the wall and just get up and go again, right? A lot of times I find people who have that have a very tough time empathizing and or sympathizing. I don't know if sympathizing we wanted, but they can't see how people are not like that.
Yeah.
Right. And
Yeah.
so the fact that you did, and like, what was the evolution in that? How did you come to that, to even become a coach, right? Like, there's
Yeah.
a huge transformation in just that. What do you say about that?
Yeah, and I'm going to agree with you 100%. And this will take me back to my track and field college days where, again, you know, if you look in my documentary, one of my coaches talks about me as an athlete. And he's like, you know, he's one of the fastest, most powerful, strongest kids we've ever had at this university. He's like, he's a guy that I could give a command to, and he would just do it at the highest level with no questions asked. And again, that was my personality. I just somehow I grew up that way. And when I was asked to coach at that time, at that level, I really, really struggled coaching other athletes that didn't just pick it up like that. And I didn't understand why. I'm like, why can you not just pick this up like this? And for me, what really had to happen is when I went to that next level of training for Olympics to actually competing in the Olympics and understanding there's a big dynamic still in there at the level of athletes and the level of mindset. And I'm like, wow, this guy over here may not be able to pick it up like that, but if I work with him just a little bit longer, he'll actually be able to pick it up at the same level. And so when I started getting that understanding that we all work at different levels, that's what helped me get into a position of being, you know, like a coach and realizing, okay, you know, Johnny or Jenny over here is not going to pick up everything like Joe and Gina, you know, right away, or, you know, just making up names and stuff. And so I've actually started transitioning a lot more of the understanding of the people who don't pick it up as quick, because the ones that do pick it up as quick, for me, they're a little bit easier to work with in my mindset. Yeah. But I really actually enjoy digging into the mindset of the people where it takes a little bit longer, because one of the biggest reasons, honestly, for me, and it's a little bit selfish, but I get more out of helping these guys more in detail and longer term. I get so much more out of that, I tell my clients, than they get out of it. And they're like, well, what do you mean? I'm like, because I get to work with you and I'm actually teaching you more than I have to teach on, you know, some of the other clients. So I learn a lot more by helping you a lot more. And they're like, wow, I never thought about it that way.
Yeah. Yeah, that's brilliant. I really hear when you step up and have to put things into language and words and really train somebody else in a lot of things that are given for a lot of people, especially high performance athletes, right? They don't question the coach often. They don't, right? So you don't have to explain or even think through why or how to do something. And yeah, you get a lot of benefit from that. So that's awesome. You know, I think this brings me into the conversation around, so on the other side, there are people who just, they got their hand out, right? Like they want a handout. They want the handout. And what they want is to have the power to do it for themselves. We all know that, I think, but they don't know it. And they're looking for, like, something's missing and it's out here. And, you know, that's a very human thing that all of us are doing at some level, right? What do you say about that? Or, you know, what do you see about how to get those people into taking responsibility for what they're up to? Like, where do you see yourself there?
Yeah, and those, you know, it is what it is. And again, like you said, we're all guilty. I've been in that position too, where I was just like, I just want somebody to figure this out for me, right? And but then I've also been on the other end where I was like, I'm just going to be 100% accountable, and I'm just going to, you know, take this and run with it, and I'm going to do the very best I can. And so, you know, what I found that's worked for me and the clients I've worked with that have been in that situation is just trying to relate to what it is they got going on. Because typically when they just want, like, that hand out, if you will, they're typically in a more, I guess, a crisis kind of situation where they really need a lot of help. And they're just like, I need help. And they just need somebody to come and pick me up by the back of my jacket and carry me across the water. And, you know, I think where I become fortunate in that situation is because I've had so many unique situations that I can talk to from experience of saying, you know what, yes, I've actually been in that situation too, but I'm glad to let you know that that's not just going to happen. No one's going to come save you. The only person who's going to save you is you yourself. And this is a time, and this is part of the process where you need to be 100% accountable. Now, I'll be there for you step for step if we need to, but this is something that you have to go through in order for you to accomplish X, Y, Z. There's no shortcuts. There's no way around it. And it is what it is. If you look at all the greats of in anything that they've ever accomplished, doesn't matter if it was speaking, teacher, science, or whatever, all of them had to walk through their own fire to get to where they wanted to get to, bottom line. And part of that, we all hear it, right? It's, you know, the journey and the destination is part of that experience is what helps you become what it is that you want to become. And so, you know, in some cases that works. And then again, you have some of them that are just like, no, I just need help. And then you just keep trying. You keep trying, and hopefully they get it and understand it. There's no free handouts. You know, there's a lot of free information and stuff like that. But I could, you know as well as I do, you and I could sit here and give each other the very, very best information in the world. But if we don't put actions and work into it, it's never going to work for either one of us.
Totally. Yeah. So, I mean, it's just, obviously I see the political climate nowadays, and that's essentially, it seems to be the arguments on both sides, right? Well, I suppose on the other side, it's actually, this is what I want to speak to. It's brilliant. You brought this. When you made that transition to, I'm a high performance athlete, I am the performer too, I'm going to actually help others perform. What do you think, what's the reality there? Was that taught? Was that something you came up with? Did you always have that urge? You know, where did that come from for you?
Yeah, great question. You know, I was just planning on honestly continuing doing motivational speaking, and that was going to be my thing. And for me, when the light went off, you know, obviously growing up the way I did, homelessness and drug addicted parents and all that stuff, when the light eventually went off, when I thought to myself, I need to start giving back. And when I started working in, you know, human services, and I started having like other parents come to me like, hey, could you help my son with this? Or, hey, my husband's experiencing this. Like, I just had people coming up to me and asking me if I could help them with stuff. And I was like, you know, at first I was like really caught off, like, why are you asking me? And they're like, well, you're like, you've done it. And I'm like, I've done what? But the problem for me back in the day was that I simplified everything that I did. So I didn't look at my accomplishments over, you know, throughout the years as something significant. It was just normal to me. And so when I got into a place of like realizing like, wow, you know, going from track and field to bobsled in a year and 3 months and winning Olympic silver medals, not normal, and giving some credit to that, like giving credit to some of the things I accomplished and realizing that that could actually help out a lot of people. That's when I started thinking, wow, when I get up and speak to a group of people, whether it's 10 people or a few thousand people, you know, I might be touching some people and being that inspiration and motivation. But what if I could actually sit down on a regular basis with a group of people or individuals and teach them some of the things that I've learned over time in detail? What would that look like? And that's where I started thinking, wow, that's where they're actually going to make some transformation. And that's, for me, when the light truly went off, and I was like, wow, if I really want to live by my true foundation of the being of who I am, which is coming from a place of service and wanting to help people and organizations, then I need to go from being the motivational, inspirational guy to having to help these people actually transform. And the only way they are going to transform is with a long-term plan, right? Similar to what I did of going from being a homeless kid to an Olympian and so on and so on. It was a long term, and obviously it's not going to be that long term, but you know, the point is like, wow, there's so many people out there that really, really, really want to make this transformation, and they're inspired and they're motivated, but they just don't have the tools to actually make that transformation. And I was like, wow, I look back on my career and I was like, wow, I actually have a lot of transformational tools that I didn't realize. And a lot of them I can talk to people and make it relate to whatever it is in their life. Again, whether it's relationships, business, sports, I can make it very relatable for them so they understand and it makes sense, and not always talking at such a high level to where they're just like, whoa, what are you talking about? So that's what got me excited about it, to actually step into that space.
Got that. That's perfect. That's brilliant. All right. That brings up for me the next part, which is, how does transformation relate to your spiritual walk, whatever that looks like?
Yeah. Yeah. And I live here in Utah, right? Everybody knows anything about Utah. We're very, very heavily with the LDS church here and stuff too. And, I'm a very spiritual person. I have been for a long, long time. And, it is what it is. I believe in a higher power. But I also believe that higher power is there for a reason. It's not there to give me what we were talking about before, a handout. It's there to potentially give me signs to say, okay, go down this path or go down that path. And I hate to bring this up, but it is so true, and it's the saying by Muhammad Gandhi, right? He says, be the change you want to see. And he doesn't say, pray to God and he's going to save you, right? Yeah. It's you go out there and be the change, because in the end, we actually have to take those steps, and we actually have to, take those actions to make those changes in life. And for me, the spiritual part is kind of a guidance system for me to realize that I'm meant for more. We're meant to be better than just what we're doing right now. We're meant to be, one of my other groups, we're meant to be human beings, not human doings, right? So it doesn't matter all the things that we're doing, but who are we being as individuals and people, not only to ourselves, but the people around us. And so for me, that's that spiritual guidance and connection of the universal energy. I'm a huge believer that, if I'm given back in a place of service, the universe and that spiritual energy is going to give it back to me tenfold, without the expectation of me expecting anything. I just do it because I do it out of the goodness of my heart, and I love people and I love the human race. And I just do it knowing that if I do it without an expectation, unconditionally, it's going to come back to me. And it does, like massively. So.
Yeah, totally, man. Well said. I'm curious, have you always had that love for humanity?
No. No, I mean, I grew up as a pretty angry kid, in all honesty. And that lasted, I would say, through a lot of junior high. And it wasn't until I found my true purpose as a young child or a young kid that I started appreciating the people around me. And, I think back to when I was a young hellion kid, and my grandma and my aunt and some of my family members were, I look at it now and I'm like, gosh, they were just trying to help me. And I was just this mean little vicious kid, and I hated everybody. And I was so angry inside, because of the life I was going through. And, that brings up, one time I was speaking at a conference with about, 1,000 executives back in Chicago. And I was telling my story verbatim at the time. Grew up homeless, so-and-so, blah, 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 went to the Olympics, story over. And, at the end, I take a Q&A, and one gentleman in the front row raises his hand, and he's like, aren't you so just upset and mad and hate your mom for the life that she put you through? And this is when the light really went off. And this was after the 2002 Olympics. And of course, you're on stage, right? And you're used to filling time with talking. And it was a question that I'd never had anyone ask me. And what seemed like 10 to 15 minutes, which is probably 2 seconds, I was just like, oh my gosh, how do I answer this? And I said, you know what? If it wasn't for the life my mom put me through, I would never become the man I was today. And from that point on, the light clicked on again. I was like, you know what? It doesn't matter the things that people do in life, because you can't control them. And the only thing you can do is, I was talking to a group the other day about communication and human interaction. I can't control the things that you do to me. I can't control the things that you say to me, but I can control how I respond and react to those things. So with that, it's funny because my girlfriend, Denise, you've seen a couple times. I like to drive fast, and I don't know if it comes from being in my sports, and I have a little bit of impatience. And when somebody cuts me off or does something that would normally bug everyone else, I always tell myself this phrase: they're doing the very best with what they have, and it solves all my problems. I just keep driving on, and I'm good with a smile.
That's an Olympic mindset quote right there, for sure. Love it.
So,
Okay. Anything? What was any first thing that comes to mind? What was the biggest transformation you knew you overcame in life, or have evolved to in life?
oh my gosh, there's a lot of them, but the first thing that comes to my mind is we got to kind of step back a little bit, and you and I have talked about this a little bit, but when I retired from the Olympics in 2010, I was so used to a life of being Bill the Olympian and being on stage and winning Olympic medals and doing charity events and just being like up there, the top echelon of everything I did. When I retired, I didn't really have a great game plan for my post-retirement. And so I went through literally a crisis for 8.5 years of losing my identity and understanding, like, where do I belong now? And it was 8.5 years. It's something that I just recently started talking about when it comes to like depression and addiction and things like that. But I went through like 8.5 years of chaos. And I was just like, wow, I started blaming everyone else for my problems and, bouncing from job to job. I wasn't getting the speaking deals I wanted, failed businesses left to right, failed relationships left to right. And after 8.5 years, I joined onto a group, and it was a mentoring group. And it was the first time that I actually said, you know what, as an athlete, I was really successful at what I did. So what did that look like? And so I had to take a step back and kind of almost reframe where I was. And I was like, I had a coach. I surrounded myself with absolutely amazing, influential people. I had a game plan, and I had, like, again, coaches around me to help me like execute those game plans. And if I fell off, I was still prepared for, the unknowns. And so I was like, all I need to do is go back to what made me successful in the first place. And so, after 8.5 years of just like, I had so no hope at all. But thankfully I woke up and I was like, okay, again, like we talked about before, no one is going to fix these problems that I'm going through that I've created except for me. So why don't I go back to what made me successful in the past and start all over, if you will, and see where we can go from there. And that was the biggest transformation. Even some of my mentors, and yes, I have my own mentors and coaches, people. Some of my mentors and coaches told me that I made the biggest transformation in a 6-month time. They're like, you made a transformation in a 6-month time that people only wish to make over a whole lifetime. And it was extremely powerful. But again, I knew that what I've done in the past as an athlete was a model for success. And I just went back to the basics, went back to the foundation that got me there in the first place, and applied it to my new life as a regular person, if you will. And it worked out really well. But it was a lot of hard work. It really was. But
so surround yourself with awesome people, get a coach, and start practicing. Is that what I heard?
Yeah. And I had, and then I had, I also took, had a goal and dreams and all those things, something to shoot for, right?
Yeah.
And that was really big. And then I think one of the other big things, there's so many big things that we could talk about. I detached myself from all the BS that I continue to feed myself on a regular basis. And because, people always say, oh, I'm my biggest critic. And yeah, we typically are, but in some cases that can be really detrimental. But I just really detached myself from a lot of the chaos that I created for myself and decided that I was going to rebuild my architecture. And again, like, I was the only person who could be responsible for that. So
what did that look like in like reality? How did you detach yourself from the woes and the constant conversations and excuses they keep popping up for me? It's like, how do you get away from that? What are you doing?
For me, I literally did, I don't know if you're familiar with doing mirror work, but I literally had a real serious conversation for the first time in my 46 years with myself in the mirror. And it is a weird conversation when you're looking at yourself in the mirror and you're staring, you're not looking away, it's constant eye contact, and you realize that there's an actual human being directly across from you that you're looking at. And you start having that conversation with that person, and it's almost like that you're outside of the box looking in at yourself saying, hey, it is what it is. I was like, hey, bro, listen, This is what's, you know, and I literally, I said, okay, here's what's going on, and this is what's been going on, and you are not going down the path that we wanted to go down 5, 10, 15, 20 years ago, and this is a reality check. What is it that you want to do? And I, you know, and it is what it is, and I throw it out there because I want people to understand that I relate to some of the stuff. I had created so much chaos in my life that it impacted my family, my kids' life, my work life, my personal life, my health, my financial life. Everything across the board was just literally going downhill if some of them hadn't already like fallen off the map. And I, like I said, I just had this conversation. I still do it today. I sometimes when I wake up in the morning and I might be off, I will go and have a conversation with myself in the mirror, tune everything out, or meditate and say, okay, what are you really trying to accomplish here? You know, what is the real picture behind what it is that we're wanting to do? And if people can really be vulnerable enough to have that conversation with yourself on a real deep level, that's really powerful. And for me, that's what it took for me to like almost humanize myself, looking at myself in the mirror and talking to myself like I was talking to another human being. Like, okay, you've got to get your stuff together, and it's got to start now. And the only person who's going to be able to do it is you. Now, so put on your big boy pants, take some accountability, and let's get to work.
Love that. Thank you for bringing that. Thank you for bringing the honest authenticity altogether. But like every human goes through that.
Yeah.
And it just shows where you are in your evolution to where you can do that for yourself.
Yeah.
And sometimes I guess it takes people on the outside enough to be like, hey, what's going on? Right.
Yeah.
So awesome, brother. Thank you for sharing that. Here's the next question. Everybody's somewhere in their journey of transformation, right? Everybody's transforming something by default, or, you know, like actually is everybody transforming? Can you be stagnant? Does that exist, and where and how?
Can it be stagnant? I'm going to say, yeah. I think a lot of times we get into a position where we're just going, and I say that because I feel like I felt like I've been in that position before, where I'm just doing the same thing over and over and over and over again. I think, you know, maybe a good example is like relationships, right? You go from one poor relationship, and you're like, oh, I'm never gonna date that girl or that guy again. And you're like, this is the kind of person I want to date. And somehow you find yourself dating the exact same person that, funny enough, looks like the person you just broke up with not too long ago. And so you're going through like that vicious cycle, and it's kind of stagnant, if you will. And the same thing can happen in sports and business, from my opinion. So I would say, yeah, we can go through a stagnant period of transformation where it's just kind of stopped. But when it's stopped, that means we've stopped taking action. And that typically happens, like going back to our earlier conversation, with the person who thinks, I got it. You don't got it. It is what it is, man. We just don't, as human beings, we don't just got it. We're put here on this earth to learn and create, and we utilize one another to help do that. And that's what we're here for, as human beings, to help each other out. And so, again, I always encourage people, if you ever get to that plateau, and you hear this in the sports world, right? I've been lifting, and, you know, I bench press 300 pounds, and I've been at 300 pounds for so long. Well, have you asked for anyone for help? No, man, because I've been doing this for 20 years. All right, well, then you don't got it. So let's take a look at what you've been doing. Let's break it down, deconstruct it, and rebuild what it is that you want to try to accomplish, and start putting some actions and steps into going forward.
What that brings up for me is like, when you are stagnant in areas where either you think you got it, you're essentially not, or you've like avoided all responsibility. Like it's somebody else's, because of that, I can't do anything in this area, right? Like you don't have any responsibility, and you're not owning this area. You're not cleaning this mess. And everybody has these like domains of life. And so some areas are stagnant for all people, right?
Yeah.
And some areas are naturally going to be growing because that's where the attention and focus is. Any advice or coaching around how to manage that space, all those spaces best, or, you know, what do you see?
Yeah, you know, one of the big things for me, and before I say that, you know, if you look at any of the people out there that are super successful people, or people that just are successful defined on whatever it is that they want their success to look like. There are people out there that come from a place of true integrity, and they're constantly working to, master their craft or whatever it is. You've got someone like Bill Gates. The guy still reads books. He's still learning. It's just nonstop, right? It's constant work. One of the things for me is I used to be the guy that would take on, I have so many things come across my desk all the time, all these opportunities. Oh my gosh, we'd love to have you a part of this and love you to have a part of this. And I was like, oh yeah. I got super excited. And I realized I was taking on way too much. And there's a saying, I can't remember what it is, that you have all these things, but you're like a master of none. I can't remember exactly the saying, but yeah, I realized in my transformation that I needed to really get more laser focused. And it doesn't matter, because we get, the human nature is we always want to help people out. And sometimes I just can't help everyone out. So I had to figure out, for me, 4 pillars that worked for me. And that came down to motivational speaking, mentoring, coaching, my nonprofit, and family. And those are the 4 pillars that I truly work on. And if anything falls outside of that, it's kind of second to everything that's on board at first. And so I just encourage people, and I invite them to even create a list and write down all the things you got going on in your life. And this is going to be the most important part of it, is out of all those things you write down, and try to write down 20 out of all those things, out of those 20 things you got going on in your life that you feel like are important in your life, which one of those are truly serving you and your purpose and your family 100%. And if it's not 100% all the way around, then you just need to cut the fat and focus on the ones that are really truly serving your purpose.
Well said. All right. So if human beings are going to transform, if human beings are going to evolve to the next stage of human being, what do you see if we could wave a policy wand, right? Or, we're going to make sure all this is instituted in schools. This is a good question. If we were going to put a curriculum into school for children at any age, wherever you say, what are we going to teach human beings? And what does that curriculum vaguely look like?
Oh my goodness. I don't know if I have the best answer to this. The only thing that came up in my head is teaching people how to come from a place of service. And I say that just because I've seen how much it's helped other people. And I think when you come from a place of service, we tend to learn how to be unselfish, but also selfish in a beneficial way, to where we're taking care of ourselves. But when we learn how to be unselfish and we're willing to go out of our way to help another human being out, that's where so many things also come into play to help you just be a great person across the board. And again, I just say this, and I think that could be taught at any level, right? I just say that because it's been so monumental in my life, in my transformation, that it is what it is. I'm the type of person, I love to test stuff. and I've tested theories, and I've tested methodologies, and I've tested them on the negative side. I've got a good friend who's, that wrote the book Fat to Fit, whatever he calls it and stuff. And very similar. I just test stuff to see how it works. And I realized that for me, and a lot of people that I know that come from a place of service, genuine service, they live such a fruitful life. It's unbelievable. And they live a life of integrity, right? Teaching our kids and people around the world to live with integrity and being unselfish. So
that is a brilliant policy change. I support it. Let's vote.
Let's make it happen. Where's the magic wand?
Done, brother. That was totally. And I've actually said that same thing personally. I happen to know that's my father's big thing, service. And I'll say that I did not have service for most of my life. I didn't get the concept around it, and I suffered for it, really.
Yeah, me too.
Not getting the true benefit that service provides the self in a selfish manner, even what is there. So I love that. Thank you for bringing that.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Any other thing you want to talk about regarding transformation? Anything you feel like we've missed or you want to put in?
No, I think we hit a lot of things right on the head. I think that's great. And I just hope that there's more people that are willing to actually transform. One thing I learned is again, it doesn't matter how much information you and I know, we can't help someone transform unless they're ready to transform. And, a lot of work comes with transformation, and it's not easy. But again, there's that phrase, if it was easy, everyone would be doing it. You hear it all the time. I love to leave people with a quote that I came up with, and that goes like this: dreams are only dreams until we take the actions to ignite them.
Love it. Love it. Dreams are only dreams until we take the actions to ignite them.
Yep.
Okay, good. All right, so we're going to be doing a preview call with Bill. It's called our Coach in Action call. It'll be March 12th at 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, which, based on your time frame, Bill's in Utah, so Mountain Standard Time looks like 7 p.m. And we'll be we'll be promoting, of course, that. And that said, it's just an opportunity to come be with Bill. We're going to set up a context around the Olympic mindset, and this is really come get some questions answered and transform something to move along in your own journey.
Yeah.
So
and if I don't have the answers, I promise you I will find it for you. I've been fortunate enough to surround myself with some of the most amazing people that I can rely on them and they can rely on me. And I promise, we might not find the answer live or online or whatever it is, but we will get the answer for you.
And frankly, I always say, I don't have the answers, but we'll have the questions for you. The answers are inside. So either way, we're going to tag team it. You will be taken care of, and we're looking forward to hosting you if you're watching. And just as an express thank you, Bill, this was an awesome interview. Thank you for letting us in on the INNERview that Coach Bill Schuffenhaur has. And just thank you for the force that you are in the world. You are the pinnacle of human being. And thank you for spreading the Billness in the world, service and empowering people.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. It's an honor to be here with you every time we get a chance.